Welcome to my classroom. In this lecture number 15, we will discuss about the effect of cofactors and the effect of enzyme inhibitors on the mechanism between enzyme substrate system. Okay, that is in presence of an inhibitor or in presence of a cofactor, how the reaction mechanism is affected between the enzyme and the substrate. Okay, ready? I hope you have completed the previous lecture number 14 video where we have discussed about your other factors that are affecting the enzyme activity. So we know that in general an enzyme and substrate reaction takes place by at the active sites that are present in the enzyme. The substrates come and get attached to it, and intermediate ES is being formed. Then that ES is further proceeds to form irreversibly to form the product and the free enzymes, and the thus formed product and free enzyme get detached from the surface. So that's what a general enzyme substrate reaction kinetics is discussed, and we have seen the various factors that affect the enzyme substrate mechanism. So enzyme activity is being affected by various factors. So to start with, we have seen the effect of concentration of enzyme. So if there are less enzymes, less active sites, so the rate of the reaction is going to be less. So when the more number of enzymes are present, so the higher the enzyme concentration, higher will be the active sites. So therefore we are going to have higher rate of the reaction. Similarly, when the concentration of the substrate is low, when even the active sites and the enzyme concentration is more, when the substrate concentration is less, so there is going to be less rate of the reaction, because not all the active sites are being occupied by the substrate. So therefore higher the substrate concentration up to a critical level, so with increase in substrate concentration, the rate of the reaction is going to increase. Okay, but it gets saturated when all these enzyme active sites are being occupied by the substrate, beyond which even you increase the substrate concentration, there won't be any increase in the reaction rate. Okay, similarly, mostly the more the product is formed, there will be the reduction in the rate of the reaction, which is at that state when more product is formed means more substrate is being consumed, right? So that it is like towards the end only it will happen, right? So that way when the concentration of product is more, so the rate of the reaction will be less. That's why it is better if you can, if possible, we should keep removing the product that is formed during these biochemical reactions. Okay, enzymatic reaction. We have seen the effect of temperature. When there is an increase in temperature, the movement will be more, so there will be increase in the enzymatic activity. There is, for every enzyme there is a range of optimum temperature. Also we have seen the effect of pH, effect of activators. So we have seen the effect of time. In general, time has no effect because all the enzymatic reactions are very quick. They need a few hours maximum, or most of them take place within minutes, right? And we have seen the effect of light and radiation. We know that if any radiation is taking place on the enzyme surface, these active sites or the structure of the enzyme are getting disturbed. So thereby these radiations with alpha, beta, gamma rays, so they will affect the performance of an enzyme. So that way, so they are detrimental to the catalytic activity of the enzymes. Okay, so the effect of inhibitors we will discuss in detail. So in the previous lecture number 14, we have seen the every enzyme will have an optimum pH range. So we have seen some of the examples. For example, pepsin is active around 1.5 to 2. So there are some enzymes like arginase, which will be optimum when it is in the basic medium, when the pH is more than 9. So that is more active. Right, so there are neutral enzymes which like urease, which is optimum around when the pH is 7, right? So also we have seen the effect of temperature, and we define the temperature coefficient, that is Q10. So that is optimum temperature for any enzyme controlled reaction will be a balance between this Q10 and the denaturation, because we have seen that every 10-degree rise in the temperature, the catalytic activity will be doubled. On the flip side, there will be drop in the, or we can say that there is a denaturation of the enzyme takes place. So that's a trade-off between it. We have to choose the optimum temperature, right? So that's why this Q10 is seen. Even there was a typo error when Q10, that is with a 10-degree temperature rise, the reaction rate is doubled. I hope you have noted out in your notebook. If you are not, please note down now. Okay. And as I told, when the effect of light and radiation, so any exposure to the UV light or beta, gamma or X-rays, that will definitely inactivate these certain enzymes because they will form some peroxides also. Okay. For example, UV rays will inhibit the salivary amylase activity. In this lecture number 15, we will discuss in detail about this cofactor and catalytic inhibitors. Okay, these enzyme inhibitors. So what is a cofactor? Because there are like people, right? Solo person is there. Some people will do very good work when they are with somebody's company, right? Some people will say, for example, a batsman also you take. Some people, whoever is in the other end, they will keep hitting the runs, right? So they are like independent of the partners. Okay, but there are some people, when the captain is on the other side, when Dhoni is on the other side, they play well. Like in partnership between Rahul Dravid, Sachin Tendulkar, Saurav Ganguly. When the partner is good, in presence of other person, the performance is being enhanced, right? So that way, even these enzymes are protein in nature, but there are they require some additionally some non-protein chemical compounds which will enhance the activity of these enzymes. Okay, so generally a cofactor is a non-protein chemical compound which is required for the protein's biological activity. That is, for enzymes activity will be increased, or even for its regular functioning, this cofactor needs to be present in it. Okay, so they are called as cofactors. So they are not generally non-protein chemical compounds. Okay, what do you mean? It is like a helper molecule. So cofactors can be considered to be helper molecules that will assist the enzymes to perform the duties well. Okay. In general, these cofactors are ions or organic molecules. That's why they can be also called as coenzymes also there in some cases. Okay. So examples are there is a difference between cofactors and coenzymes which we can differentiate later. Right now, to look into what is the mechanism that is taking place in presence of a cofactor can be hypothesized like given below. So you can see here the enzymes which require these a cofactor to function well, they are called as apoenzymes. That is, they are inactive proteins. As I said, in absence of them, it won't do any work. Okay, so that way, these apoenzymes will be simply idle or inactive in absence of a cofactor. But the moment a cofactor comes in contact with it or gets attached to its surface, so what happens is they become a halo enzyme or a whole enzyme. They become a complete, right? So we feel our best friend is in present with us. We feel we are complete. We get motivated to do our work, right? So that way these inactive enzymes become active enzymes. So these inactive enzymes are called as apoenzymes, or you can say protein portion of this molecule, and it will become a haloenzyme. So that is apoenzyme plus cofactor will give you an haloenzyme, which is a whole enzyme which is more active than the apoenzyme. So that is readily will get attached to the substrate. That is, the substrate will come and get attached to the active sites of this haloenzyme. That is this enzyme plus coenzyme thing. So that if you look here, so you can dig here, this is the apoenzyme and this is a cofactor. Let us say it's like any shape. You can draw with any shape, different shapes. That's why I shown you two different design here. So any shape, there is a apoenzyme to which a cofactor is coming in contact with it. So once it is attached, it will readily attract the substrate. The substrate will get bind to the active sites of the haloenzymes. Okay, so that way there will be further product formation, that intermediate. Okay, once the substrate gets attached, it is ES substrate, right? So they will further proceed to form the product. Okay, so these cofactors can be made up of like inorganic, or it can be a complex organic or metal organic cofactors. So example for these inorganic cofactors are any metal ions, okay, magnesium ion, copper ion, manganese ion, or iron sulfur clusters. They are examples for inorganic cofactors. Whereas example for organic or metal organic cofactors are within our body itself, they are all produced. Okay, so this flavin and heme are example for cofactors which are present. Okay, so sometimes they are also important because the moment this disappear, that enzyme has to, it is like a controller of the enzymes. right? When the enzyme is there, when some reaction is taking place, that reaction has to be stopped means these cofactors will disappear. So once this cofactor disappears, the enzyme will slow down and it will stop the reaction. Okay, it is like naturally we need these cofactors also to control the reactions in the system. Okay. So as I told you, it can be compared with coenzymes. Some of them even act like coenzymes, and some of them are acting like cofactors. What is the difference? I told you what is cofactor. They are like non-protein molecule. It is a metal or metal ions or ion sulfur clusters, right? Whereas the coenzymes are actually small molecular organic non-protein molecule, but they are acting like an auxiliary for the specific action of an enzyme. Okay, so they can be further classified as co-substrates or prosthetic groups. Okay, so if I call it as co-substrates, what they do is they are temporarily bound to the protein and will be released at some point, then get back in. Whereas these prosthetic groups, they are bound permanently to the proteins. Okay, so whereas in case of cofactors, they can be classified into organic cofactor and inorganic cofactors. So these organic cofactors are further divided into coenzymes and prosthetic groups. Okay, so what is the chemical nature of these coenzymes? They are complex organic, metal organic or non-protein chemical compounds, whereas in case of cofactors, they are non-protein metallic ions. They may be either in simply inorganic ions or organic molecules. So there are some sources which limit the use of term cofactor to the inorganic terms. However, the function, if you look at the function, this coenzyme acts as a transient carrier of the specific functional groups from the enzyme to enzyme, and coenzymes will bind to the apoenzyme and assist in the enzyme activity. Whereas if you look at these cofactors, they are also known as only as helper molecules. So they just assist the apoenzyme during the catalysis of the reactions. So that's why cofactors have another name called as helper molecules, whereas coenzymes are transient carrier molecules. They are also called as transient carrier molecules. Please note down that. So you can note down the examples also. So there are examples as I told earlier. Magnesium, copper, manganese ions are example for cofactors, whereas biotin, coenzyme A, NADH, triphosphate, adenosine triphosphate, riboflavin, thiamine, and folic acid are examples for coenzymes. Okay, so there are several examples where these cofactors, how these cofactors are playing a role in enhancing the catalytic activity or facilitating the catalytic activity of the enzyme substrate reactions. Okay, you can go through the examples given here. If you look at the retinol, the aldehyde version of vitamin A are cofactors for opsins which are present in our human eye. Okay, opsins are apoproteins which are responsible for our vision, and rhodopsin is needed for dim light vision, and iodopsin is needed for bright light and color vision. If you look at this thiamine pyrophosphate, which is mentioned above, is a coenzyme derived from the thiamine or vitamin B1. This thiamine pyrophosphate is a cofactor in enzymes which catalyze oxidative decarboxylation and transketolase reactions. Another example, riboflavin or vitamin B12 is a precursor not only for EAD but also flavin mononucleotide, which is referred as FMN. As mentioned above, this FAD transfers electrons, and this is also the case for FMN. These coenzymes also carry hydrogen atoms for oxidation reactions in the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain. Similarly, there are examples of vitamin B6, vitamin B12, ascorbic acid, gamma carboxylases. So in these cases, we have cofactors also. Okay, please go through this in detail. We'll move on to the rate equation. Rate equation for the enzyme substrate system with a cofactor. Okay, so cofactor you can consider to be, let me say, C as the cofactor. So how we will be writing the rate equations? Okay. So what is cofactors? Okay, as I told you, let me say this is a enzyme. Okay, so let me say this is a cofactor, and let me say this is the substrate. So we have three parameters here: S, E, C. Where S is the substrate, E is the enzyme, P is the cofactor. So we can write the their concentration as substrate concentration, enzyme concentration, and the cofactor concentration, because how much cofactor is present also is going to matter, right? So what the mechanism proposed here is, okay, in absence of this cofactor, there is no reaction of that S plus E becoming ES formation. Okay, E plus S forming ES formation is not taking place in absence of this cofactor. Okay, so what happens is, first this substrate will get attached to the, so first E plus E is formed. So once this E plus E is formed, then it facilitates the attachment of the substrate to the system. Okay, so that is how the mechanism is proposed. So that is the role of the cofactor. Say that I repeat, in absence of a cofactor, this enzyme and substrate don't combine to form, that is the substrate don't get bind to the active sites of the enzyme to form ES intermediate. So therefore there is no product formation, right? So whereas in presence of a cofactor, so this E plus E will form first an intermediate which will attract the substrate to come onto the surface, and then it will proceed to form intermediate ES, then product is formed finally. Okay, so that way in absence of this cofactor, what is this enzyme is called apoenzyme. Okay, so now what we get is here finally enzyme substrate complex is formed here, right? So that is the beauty of these cofactors. In presence of a cofactor, so that enzyme substrate complex is being formed. So it is like similar to a two substrate system. I hope we will derive equations for S1, S2, comma E. When there are two substrates are present, how the reaction mechanism will change. So similar to that, here also we are going to have a mechanism. So the mechanism is similar to that one. So once we have that mechanism similar to that, what will be the final rate equation is? So the rate equation will be V equal to K3 into E naught, which is the initial concentration of the enzyme, into concentration of cofactor C into concentration of substrate S, divided by concentration of cofactor into concentration of substrate plus Ks into concentration of C plus Kc. Okay, so this will be the rate equation where C is the concentration of the cofactor, where C is the concentration of the cofactor. So if we consider the substrate concentration is fixed, when I say it is fixed means when the substrate concentration is constant, then what will happen to the rate equation? When the substrate concentration is constant, so it shows that it will maintain dependence of the cofactor concentration. Okay, so what I repeat, if substrate concentration is fixed, then Michaelis-Menten dependence on the cofactor concentration is visible. Okay, so this Vmax value or your Km value will depend on this concentration of the cofactor. That can be studied, right? So there are two cases coming into picture, right? So we have a case one where the concentration of the cofactor is less. And the concentration of the cofactor is very less means what? Very little. Okay, it's very low. What will happen? That is, when the concentration is very much low, then it is going to be less than the Kc. Then the reaction rate is first order in concentration of C. Okay, And we have case 2 where if concentration of the cofactor is very much greater than this Kc, that is when the cofactor concentration is very high, then the single substrate is recovered and the rate of the reaction is independent of cofactor concentration. Okay, so these are two are the cases we have in for this given rate equation. So first we can easily derive this rate equation. Please do it as a practice. So we have solved the equation for two substrate system. So in that, instead of another substrate, you can write it as C. So that is your concentration of the cofactor. So we will able to derive an equation like this. So with that simplification of two cases, we have two cases. Okay. So one is first order reaction, another one is independent of C, means what? It becomes zero order constant reaction. Okay. Now let's get into this enzyme inhibitors. Okay, so these enzyme inhibitors, and to start with, we have already seen the enzyme substrate kinetics. We have seen that Michaelis-Menten approach, how to experimentally determine the Michaelis-Menten parameters, for which we will consider the pre-steady state, that is initially, that is when the beginning of the reaction there is no product formation, therefore we assume the concentration of product is zero, that is initial rate, where we have assumed the formation of intermediate is taking place, right? So once ES is formed, then the reaction will speed up, right? So that way, that pre-steady state phase is there. So any enzyme is added to the substrate, the reaction will follow three stages. There are three stages, as I said. First stage is pre-steady state stage. So that is the early time, once the interaction between the substrate and enzyme proceeds, initiates. So there will be no product formation, therefore intermediate formation will be taking place burst, like there will be quick formation of ES complex formation. So then comes the steady state equilibrium of condition, where the ES concentration remains constant, then the product formation is slowly increasing. Okay, and then there is post steady state condition is there, that is due to depletion in the substrate concentration. So ES formation, complex formation is decreasing, whereas with respect to product, also it will slow us down. Okay, so there are fewer intermediates, therefore there is no further forward reaction of these intermediates to form the product. So that's what takes place in the post steady state. So we know that pre steady state phase is very short, so that equilibrium is achieved within the microseconds. That's why this, whenever we plot the graphs, right, so we are writing about maximum rate, they all obtained within this milliseconds. That the initial rate of reaction is very fast, so that will be your maximum rate also. Okay, therefore if you are measuring the rate in the first few seconds of a reaction, we will be the reaction rate in the steady state. So that is what used in the Michaelis-Menten kinetics. So we have seen these all enzymes are catalyzing the every process that is taking place in a cell. So the catalytic activity of certain enzymes is altered or modified by certain organic or inorganic molecules, which are called as modifiers. So in general, any foreign material or other within a material that is present within the cell or the enzyme, so which in its presence the enzyme's activity is altered. So whenever there is a change, it can be positive change or negative change, right? So even our parents used to tell, you are good, my son is good. Always every parent feel that in a friends, 2 3 people are there, my son is the best. But only when this third fellow comes into picture, so he ruins them. Or you say, when my boy joins with that boy, he is scoring well, he is doing very good thing to the society, like that, right? So that it can be influence of a best friend in our life in a positive way, which will be helping us or motivating us or stays as a strength to us. Whereas there are some people who will be a critic or will just spread the negativity, right? We have to stay away from them. So we are going to discuss about these enzyme inhibitors right now, so which is not good for the thing also, right? So we want to see, these are the materials which will reduce the catalytic activity. Okay, so the any substance that can decrease the enzyme activity, they are called as negative modifiers. Okay, so there are positive modifiers and negative modifiers. So which is inhibiting the activity, which is modifying the activity in a negative way, they are called as negative modifiers. Okay, so whatever is a compound which converts the enzymes into inactive substances and thus adversely affect the rate of the reaction or enzyme catalytic reaction, they are called enzyme inhibitors. The process in which this such inhibition is taking place is known as enzyme inhibition. So this enzyme inhibition can be reversible, irreversible, competitive, non-competitive in nature. Okay, we will see them in detail. So the two broad classes of enzyme inhibitions are generally recognized, which is reversible and irreversible. So depending upon whether the enzyme inhibitor complex dissociates rapidly or whether they are dissociating very slowly, we are going to call it as reversible or irreversible. Because as I told, if we consider E plus I forming EI, okay, so this is going to be rate of forward reaction is your K, right? Ki, K minus I. So this, how fast it can dissociate itself, because inhibitor is getting wasting the active sites that are present at the enzyme. So if it can quickly release this EI dissociate into E plus I, so then this E is available for the substrate to react to form ES, right? So that way, whether it is this reversible reaction is taking place rapidly or very slowly will determine. When Ka is high or Ka is low, it's going to affect the activity, enzyme activity accordingly, right? So there are difference between these reversible enzyme inhibitions and irreversible enzyme inhibitions, which you can go through it. Okay, so both, if you look at this here, if you consider this reversible, they all the enzymes will follow the Michaelis-Menten rate equation. So if you are plotting a Lineweaver plot, so they will exhibit a rectangular hyperbolic curve when you plot rate of the reaction versus the substrate concentration. Whereas if it is irreversible, we are going to see some sigmoidal curve when you plot V versus S. Okay, so once we do the derivation, we will able to appreciate that also. Okay, and a reversible inhibitor will dissociate very rapidly. So quickly it is. A reversible inhibitor dissociates very rapidly from its target enzyme because it becomes very loosely bound with the system. That's the thing. E plus I is very loosely bound means what? It will quickly become E plus I. So then E is available. Whereas if it is irreversible, in this only forward reaction is taking place, the reverse is not taking place that much good. So that means the bonding is very strong. Okay, so it's very difficult to separate them out. Okay, so that is. That's the name reversible enzyme inhibitors. Okay. So there are three general type of inhibition distinguished based on the three factors. So if you look at this reversible one, we can see whether the inhibition is or is not overcome by the increase in the concentration of the substrate. So there are some cases when the inhibition is taking place. No, when you increase the substrate concentration, we will able to overcome it. That is, we will able to control or suppress this EI formation when there are sufficient substrate is there. Okay, when sufficient substrate concentration is there, so we are able to suppress this EI formation and only product formation is enhanced. So that is one type. Whether the inhibitor binds at the active site or allosteric site, so based on that also we are going to have a different type of inhibition. And there is another type, whether the inhibition binds with the free enzyme only or with the enzyme substrate complex only or with both. So based on that we are going to have a different type of inhibition. Okay, so here if you look at these irreversible cases, there are two general type of inhibition or modulation which based on two factors. One is catalytic activity is modulated through the non-covalent binding of a specific metabolite at a site on the protein other than the catalytic site, which is called as allosteric enzyme. That type is covalently modulated enzymes where the catalytic activity is interconverted between active and inactive forms by the action of other enzymes present in it. Okay. So they are covalently modulated enzymes. So as I told you, there are competitive, non-competitive and uncompetitive one. So we will see them in detail. Once we derive the rate equations for them, we will be able to appreciate what is compared in this table. Okay. So what is competitive? The inhibitor can combine with the free enzyme in such a way that it competes with the normal substrate for binding at the active site. So it is also called as substrate analog inhibition. Whereas in case of uncompetitive one, the inhibitor does not combine with the free enzyme or affects its reaction with its normal substrate. However, it does combine with the enzyme substrate complex. And we have non-competitive one. The inhibitor can combine with either the free enzyme or the enzyme substrate complex, interfering with the action of both. So inhibitors will generally bind to a site on the enzyme other than the active sites. We will see the derivation for each case, so we will be able to appreciate the other points mentioned here. Examples are given, you can go through them. Okay, please note down it. So here we use the word called as allosteric enzyme. What is allosteric enzyme? So the allosteric enzymes are modulated by non-covalent binding of some specific metabolites. They usually catalyze the first or the most important reaction of a multi-enzyme sequence and generally inhibited by the end product of the sequence. That means when the more final product is formed, this first reaction will be things, because the word allo refers to other in the Greek. Okay, other shape. Okay. So allosteric means other shape sites on the enzymes. So these allosteric enzymes are usually irreversible under intracellular condition. They are usually much larger in molecular weight and more complex in the configuration. Some of them are unstable at 0 degree Celsius, but they are stable at room temperature, or if it is in your body, our body temperature. So these allosteric enzymes have a positive or negative inhibition effect. Okay, that is a stimulation. It can stimulate the activity or it can inhibit the activity. So these allosteric enzymes having a single modulator are called monovalent enzymes, or it can be called polyvalent enzyme when they have multi-modulators. And also they have two type of control, either it is heterotropic control or homotropic control. Homotropic enzymes are modulated by the substrate itself, whereas heterotropic enzymes are stimulated or inhibited by a modulator enzyme or effector molecule other than the substrate. So that way it has the two type of control. One is heterotrophic control, homotrophic control. So some of the allosteric enzymes will show the sigmoidal plots. Sigmoidal plots in the sense, usually if we plot V versus substrate concentration rate of the reaction, what we have is a reaction like this, right? Whereas in case of this is like sigmoidal control we will get. Sigmoidal curve will be obtained. Okay. So there can be different models have been proposed to explain the mechanism of the allosteric regulations. So it can be a symmetry model or sequential model. Okay, the symmetry model proposes that the allosteric enzymes molecules occur in only one of the two possible conformations, active and inactive. Sorry. The sequential model postulates that the subunit changes in their conformation in sequence, not simultaneously. So intermediate states of differing catalytic activity will occur. Okay. So there are covalently modulated regulatory enzymes. A class of regulatory enzymes undergoes interconvention between the active and inactive forms by covalent modification of some specific group in the enzyme molecule by other molecules. So example is given, you can refer to it. A glycogen phosphorylase, which is converted into its inactive B form by enzymatic hydrolysis of its phosphorylated serine residues and dissociation of its tetrameric structure into a dimeric form. So the latter can be converted back into active phosphorylase by enzymatic phosphorylation. This is phosphorylase A, you can say capital A, it is B. So B form to A form, it happens by using this enzymatic phosphorylation reaction. So we have competitive inhibitors and non-competitive inhibitors. So what is competitive inhibitor? A competitive inhibitor will compete with the substrate at the active sites and therefore increase the Michaelis-Menten constant. However, the Vmax will remain unchanged because with enough substrate concentration, the reaction can still complete. So the graph plot of this enzyme activity against substrate concentration would be shifted to the right due to the increase of the Km value, that is your Michaelis-Menten value. That's why your hyperbolic plot becoming your sinusoidal plot here. Okay. So anyhow, we are going to derive the equation and see from the equation and the experimental plot how this Lineweaver plot will be more steeper when compared to when the inhibition is absent. Okay. So if you look at these non-competitive inhibitors, so these non-competitive inhibitors bind to another location on the enzyme and as such decrease the your Vmax value itself. That is your maximum rate of the reaction is altered here. However, your Km value remains the same. So this is demonstrated by a lower maximum on a graph plotting enzyme activity against the substrate concentration and a higher y-intercept on a Lineweaver plot when compared with no inhibitor. So in general, this competitive or non-competitive, how it is happening place, you can see that. So competitive is the one which is in competition with the substrate to get attached to the active sites. So if you look at this enzyme A, what happening is there is an inhibitor which is occupying the site which is supposed to be occupied by the substrate. Okay, so that way it is a competitive inhibition, whereas a non-competitive inhibition means it is not occupying the active site but it is occupying the some other site that is available in the enzyme, but however it is altering the activity of the enzyme, that's thereby which the substrate is not getting attached. Even though the site is empty, the substrate is not getting attached to the binding to the active site of the enzyme B because somewhere else this inhibitor is sitting on the enzyme. Okay, so that way you can understand this competitive inhibition and non-competitive inhibition. So what is actually it is changing? As I said, when you derive the equation and plot the graph with the experimental values, we are going to appreciate this. But still, if you want a comparison between this competitive and non-competitive, where it is actually site acting, that competitive inhibitors goes and occupy the active site means it is competitive. If it is occupying the alternative site, it is non-competitive inhibition. Okay, we are talking about the inhibitions. Okay, so how does it change the Km value? If it is competitive, it is increasing the Km value, whereas Vmax value is remaining the same. Whereas if it is non-competitive, Km value remains the same, whereas your Vmax value is decreased. That means if you have a Vmax value like this, in the second case, if it is non-competitive, you are with I, without I. Okay, so without I, if Vmax is something around 100, so with I it is going to be 80. So that way, if it is a non-competitive, it will alter the Vmax value, maximum rate of the reaction. That is, what is that Vmax? Vmax is your dP by dt, rate of the reaction maximum. Okay. So if you are comparing the rate of the reaction versus the substrate concentration for your normal enzyme, it is going to look like this. If it is a competitive enzyme, it is going to look like this. We can see that Km value is increased, Vmax value is same if it is competitive inhibitor. If it is non-competitive inhibitor, Km value is same, whereas your Vmax value is decreasing. So that way it is a non-competitive inhibitor. Okay, so that way the single plot will explain how the rate of the Km value, that is Michaelis-Menten parameters Km value and Vmax value are altered by competitive inhibitors and non-competitive inhibitors. So this theory you can refer to it. So some of the graphical representation of this, how this inhibitor is working. So you can see that enzyme will be having an active site and allosteric site. So some of the inhibitors will go and attach to the allosteric site. So thereby the active site is being slightly altered. So that's why the substrate is not going and getting attached to it. And that is allosteric activation. So even though this activator goes and occupies the enzyme, so we are going to have some altered active site. So that way the substrate will go and attach to the surface. So that way it can be the effect of this thing can be either there can be activation or inhibition. Okay. There are several ways of controlling the enzymatic activity within our body. So for example, allosteric activation or inactivation can take place. There is interaction with another protein also can take place. And there are some other methods like reversible covalent modification, example phosphorylation, and there can be irreversible modification like zymogen activation. So we will look into these two methods, which is phosphorylation and zymogen activation. So if you look at these phosphorylation and zymogens, so in general these proteins will undergo a huge number of post-translational modifications, but however there is only a subset of these modifications are reversible or covalent modifications such as acetylation, fatty acid acetylation, glycolization or phosphorylation. So these are some of the examples which are reversible in nature. These modifications will definitely going to affect the enzymatic activity, the lifespan of the enzyme or cellular location of the modified proteins. Of the post-translational modifications mentioned above, this phosphorylation is an important and ubiquitous one. Everywhere it is present. Ubiquitous means present everywhere. So this is one of the ubiquitous one. Of the post-translational modifications mentioned above, phosphorylation is an important and ubiquitous one. Approximately, we can say that 10% of the proteins in the cell cytosol is phosphorylated. So this phosphorylation reaction in the cell is a reversible one, where kinases catalyze the addition of the phosphoryl group and phosphatates catalyze the removal of the phosphoryl group. The phosphorylation reaction in the cell is a reversible one, where kinase catalyze the addition of the phosphoryl group and phosphatases will catalyze the removal of the phosphoryl group formed. Okay, so this reaction will involve ATP as the phosphoryl donor in the phosphorylation reaction and hydrolysis of the phosphoryl group in the dephosphorylation reaction. So the net result of these reactions can be viewed as the hydrolysis of ATP. So this is energetically favorable because the net result of this reaction can be viewed as the hydrolysis of ATP, which has a delta G of minus 12 kilocalorie per mole under the cellular conditions. So actually what is happening in this phosphorylation? An inactive enzyme will undergo some of the covalent modification in which an enzyme can be activated by the addition of the phosphate group or it can be deactivated by the removal of the phosphate group. So as the name indicates, in this some phosphate group addition or removal will take place. So once there is addition of the phosphate group, this enzyme get activated. So that way we can say that it is acting like an activator, whereas if the phosphate group is removed, so then enzyme deactivation is taking place. So what is the activating factor here? Kinase. A kinase can activate an inactive enzyme by phosphorylation, or we have alternatively phosphatase, which can activate an inactive enzyme by removal of the phosphate. So there are two ways by which this activation can be done. In one case, when you use kinase will activate the inactive enzyme by phosphorylation, whereas phosphatase can activate an inactive enzyme by the removal of phosphate group. See, phosphorylation is a type of covalent modification in which an enzyme is deactivated or activated. So when you are using this kinase, a kinase will be activating an inactive enzyme by phosphorylation. There is another way where a phosphatase can activate an inactive enzyme by the removal of phosphate. Okay. By addition of phosphate, if the inactive enzyme is becoming active enzyme, what we are using here? Kinase. When an inactive enzyme is made into an active enzyme by removal of the phosphate, there what we are using? Phosphatase. So phosphatase and kinase are being used to activate an inactive enzyme. In one case, kinase will be adding the phosphate to the system enzyme, whereas this phosphatase will be removing the phosphate from the system. So thereby inactive enzyme is being converted into active enzyme. So how this modification is taking place can be expressed here. So mainly this phosphorylation may also result in inactivation. It depends upon the nature of the enzyme. Okay. So if you look at the Lineweaver work plot, which is plotting of inverse of velocity, that is inverse of reaction rate versus inverse of substrate concentration, we will have intercept as well as an slope. So the intercept is going to be inverse of maximum velocity, or you can say maximum reaction rate Vmax, whereas the slope is going to be Michaelis-Menten constant Km divided by Vmax, that is maximum velocity. So Km by Vmax is the slope and 1 by Vmax is the intercept. So what is Lineweaver plot? We have already seen. If you are plotting inverse of reaction rate versus inverse of substrate concentration, it will have a curve with a slope of Km by Vmax and an intercept of 1 by Vmax. Okay. So that way if you consider this competitive inhibition, so if you plot a graph when there is no inhibition, if you are getting a curve with this Lineweaver plot, the slope is going to be Km by Vmax. Okay, so that means the point of intersection in the y-axis will be the same, and the moment there is addition of inhibitors with a concentration increasing, still the intercept in the y-axis is going to be the same. So that is what is observed with the experimental values, and the difference is here the intercept is same means what does it mean? The Vmax remains unchanged, whereas the point in which it is cutting, the slope is changing. As the slope is changing and Vmax is same, which means that Km value is increasing. So that's what we observe from the Lineweaver plot for a competitive reversible inhibition. And if we consider the non-competitive inhibition, so in this case the point you are going to have change in Vmax value, whereas this Km value will almost stay constant. So that is Km value will be the same, whereas Vmax value will be changing, that is non-competitive. So if you consider a reversible uncompetitive inhibition, so you will be having a slope like that. So it will be like a parallel lines. So if there is no inhibition, if you are getting a particular intercept, so we increase the concentration of the inhibitor. So what will happen is this slope is going to increase slowly. So we are going to have different Vmax values, but the slope is remaining the same. Vmax is changing and slope is same. And if you look at this uncompetitive one, so here we are going to have intercept values, we are going to have slope value and intercept value as shown here. Okay, so if you compare these plots, so for all the different type of enzyme inhibition as shown in the Lineweaver plot, so if it is a competitive inhibition, so the Km value will be increasing, Vmax value will remain unaffected, that's what you can see. And if it is an uncompetitive inhibition, so the Km value is reduced and Vmax value is reduced. Whereas in case of non-competitive or mixed inhibition, so here Km is remaining unaffected, whereas Vmax value is reduced. So that is the comparison. So anyhow, in the next lecture, we are going to derive the rate equations for these types of mechanism shown here for inhibition. So once we derive the equation and look at the final equation and express it as 1 by reaction rate versus 1 by substrate concentration, we will able to appreciate the changes happening with the Michaelis-Menten parameters such as Vmax and the Km. Well, in this lecture number 15, we have discussed about the effect of cofactors and the effect of inhibitors, and also so in the effect of inhibitors we have seen three type of inhibitors: competitive inhibitors, non-competitive inhibitors and uncompetitive inhibitors, and we have seen the Lineweaver work plot for all these cases. In the next lecture, we will derive rate equations for enzyme substrate inhibitor mechanisms. Those who have doubts can stay back, others can leave. Thank you so much for joining my classroom. Meet you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.